Pull up the roots and burn the trees. Those were the first words I heard when I rode into Halewin Hollow, and they were spoken about a woman kneeling in the mud with both hands wrapped around the trunk of a dying pear tree. I remember the order because every man around her obeyed it except me. The orchard stood in a bowl of land beneath the western ridge, where black cliffs leaned toward one another and shut out half the afternoon sun. Years of late frost had silvered the branches. The irrigation channels were dry. Old prayer ribbons hung from stakes like faded skin. At the center of it all knelt a woman in a brown work dress, her dark braid damp with mist, one sleeve torn at the elbow, her fingers red from cold earth. A steward in green wool pointed at her, as if she were part of the blight. "She has no wolf," he told me. "The valley knows it. Nothing healthy grows under a wolfless hand." The woman looked up then. Not at the steward, at me. I had been Alpha King for 12 years, long enough to know what fear looked like when people tried to hide it. I saw none in her. Weariness, yes. Anger banked so deeply it had become quiet. Grief, perhaps, but not fear. She rose slowly, wiped mud on her skirt, and said, "If His Majesty means to burn the orchard, I would ask him to wait until morning." The steward barked a laugh, still giving orders. "I am asking." "Your asking ended when the council cast you out." Something in the hollow changed. It was not the dramatic surge poets like to put into mate songs. No thunder rolled. My blood did not turn to fire. Instead, every scent around me seemed to separate. The wet bark, the horses, the iron buckles, the steward's sour wine, and beneath them came one impossible note, clean and soft as rain on warm stone. Sorry. I had smelled that scent once before in a dream I had never told anyone about. I dismounted. My captain Joran murmured, "Majesty." "Who cast her out?" The steward's smile thinned. The woman answered before he could, "The Orchard Council." "For what offense?" "For failing the moon trial." That made several workers glance away. The moon trial was an old custom, older than my crown. In most packs it had become symbolic. An adult stood beneath the full moon, shifted into wolf form, and received a silver cord marking pack adulthood. Those who could not shift were called wolfless. Most kingdoms had learned to treat that as a difference, not a disgrace. Halewin clearly had not. The steward folded his arms. "She failed at 21. We let her stay because her father kept the southern terraces. When he died, she inherited no proper standing. We gave her work. She repaid us by wasting seed and water on a dead valley." The woman's jaw tightened. "What is your name?" I asked her. "Lysa Arden." The name meant nothing to me. It should have. I looked over the orchard. "And how long have you kept this place?" 9 years. The steward said, 9 years of failure. Lysa glanced toward the nearest tree. 3 years of drought, 2 of frost, 1 of beetle rot, 2 with the upper sluice diverted to the noble vineyards, and this year the council stopped the spring release entirely. Silence followed. The steward's face changed first. I turned toward him. The upper sluice was diverted. A temporary necessity. To whose land? He did not answer. Lysa did, Master Ven's. So the steward had a name. Joran made a low sound behind me, not quite a laugh. Ven straightened. "My vineyards employ 40 families. And this orchard? Nothing grows here." Lysa looked at me again. "Not yet." There was something in the way she said it that held me. Not yet. I had come west because petitions from Halewin had grown strange. Tax grain had fallen by 1/3. 2 villages complained of water theft. A shepherd claimed that the old moon springs had been sealed. My council expected a week of ledgers and threats. I had not expected a muddy woman beside a dying pear tree to make the whole journey suddenly feel as if I had been led here. I walked past Vin and stopped beside Lysa. Show me why I should wait until morning. She studied my face for a moment, perhaps deciding whether kings could be trusted with simple answers. Then she bent and pressed her palm to the soil. Because it rained 3 nights ago, she said. The ground should be wet to my wrist. It is dry 2 fingers down. I crouched beside her. She dug with a small iron trowel and handed me a clod. The surface was dark. Inside it crumbled pale and dusty. Someone has cut the water below the ridge, she said. Then snapped enough. I did not raise my voice. Captain. Joran stepped forward. Take 6 men, follow every channel uphill. No one touches a gate, seal, wheel, or stone until you see it. Ven's face lost color. Lysa's did not. That interested me, almost as much as the scent of rain on warm stone. We found the first hidden dam before sunset. It had been built inside an abandoned sheep tunnel where the main channel narrowed through rock. Fresh mortar sealed half the flow. A side pipe, disguised beneath bracken, carried water toward Ven's vineyards. We found 2 more before dark. By then, word had spread through Halewind Hollow that the Alpha King had entered the irrigation tunnels himself and come out covered in lime dust. Villagers gathered along the orchard wall. Council elders arrived in fur-lined cloaks. Some stared at Lysa as if she had summoned me from the mountain. I might have believed it myself. Ven was placed under guard. The eldest councilwoman, Mother Saren, came to me with a face like old carved oak. Majesty, whatever he has done with the water does not change the girl's nature. Lysa was standing close enough to hear. I turned slowly. Her nature. She is wolfless. And Mother Saren blinked. It was such a small word, but the crowd heard it. And therefore the old laws forbid her from holding blessed land. Is this orchard blessed land? It was. When? Before the blight. Convenient. A few mouths twitched. Mother Saren stiffened. The moon trial protects us. From what? No answer came. I looked at Lysa. She had gone very still. That was when I understood the cruelty was older than a dry orchard. They had not merely dismissed her. They had made her spend 9 years proving herself to people who had decided before she began that nothing she touched could be good. I knew something about courts that called a verdict before hearing evidence. My father had been a great conqueror and a poor listener. I had spent 12 years undoing some of the habits he called strength. Tell me exactly what happened at your trial, I said. Lysa's gaze flickered toward the watching villagers. You do not have to, I added. The surprise in her eyes cut deeper than I expected. She took a breath. I stood under the moon, nothing happened. They waited. I tried until I was sick. Someone laughed, then others did. Mother Saren looked uncomfortable now. Lysa continued. My father stood beside me. The council told him I could remain in Halewind if I did not marry into a pack line, did not inherit sacred ground, and did not lead any communal work. And yet you lead this orchard. I keep it alive. That is not the same thing according to them. A worker at the wall muttered, She kept us alive too. Everyone turned. He was an older man with a bent shoulder. Ven glared at him from between 2 guards. The man swallowed, then spoke louder. When the north field failed, Lysa opened the orchard store. When fever came, she dried pears for the sick. When the council said the lower cottages had to wait for firewood, she cut deadfall herself. Another voice rose. She taught us grafting. A woman near the wall said, My youngest lived because of her winter broth. The murmurs multiplied. Lysa looked almost angry at them for speaking. Not because they lied. Because praise had arrived only when a king made it safe. I knew that kind of anger too. Mother Saren lifted her chin. Kindness does not make a Luna. No, I said, but neither does a wolf. The entire hollow went quiet. Perhaps I should not have said it. An alpha king's words become law faster than his thoughts, but I meant it. My own wolf had been with me since I was 13, strong, silver-backed, impatient with ceremony. I valued him. I trusted him. But I had buried soldiers who shifted beautifully and lived dishonorably. I had known humans with no wolf at all who had more courage than half my court. Power reveals character. It does not create it. I looked toward the orchard. The moon had begun to rise behind the eastern ridge, pale and nearly full. "Open the water," I ordered. Joran grinned. "All of it." "All of it." The workers ran. Within minutes, the first channel coughed brown water through the roots, then another, then another. The sound spread through the terraces in little silver streams. Lysa did not cheer. She walked. From tree to tree, she checked gates, lifted debris, pressed the soil, redirected flow with flat stones. People followed her without being told. The same villagers who had stood silent while the council cast her out now waited for her instructions. I followed too. At the upper terrace, she caught me. "You should not be carrying that." I looked down at the wooden sluice board in my hands. "Why?" "You are the Alpha King. And the board is heavy." That was not what I meant. "I know." For the first time, she smiled. It was quick, almost unwilling. The rain on stone scent sharpened. My wolf did not howl or lunge. He did something stranger. He lay down inside me. A quiet, absolute settling. As if after years of pacing from one end of a locked room to the other, he had finally found the door open. I nearly dropped the board. Lysa's smile vanished. "Are you hurt?" "No." "You look as if you have seen a ghost." "Perhaps I have." She frowned. I wanted to tell her then. I wanted to say, "I think every road I have taken led me to this ruined orchard." But a king who mistakes instinct for permission is only another kind of tyrant. So I said, "Where does this go?" She pointed to the next channel. We worked until midnight. By then the orchard smelled alive, not blooming, not healed, but wet. Roots drank, bark darkened. Frogs began calling from a ditch that had been silent when we arrived. The villagers went home one by one. Lysa did not. I found her at the oldest tree, sitting on a low stone wall with her boots muddy and her hands wrapped around a tin cup. I sat beside her. She looked sideways at my embroidered coat, then at the mud on the wall. "Your tailor will hate me." "He already hates me." "That is comforting." "He says I sit on stone too often." "Then he is a wise man." I laughed. It surprised both of us. She offered me the cup, mint water. I drank. It was terrible. She watched my face and to my annoyance laughed. "That bad?" "Your honesty is admirable." "It is feverfew." "You said mint." "There is mint in it. There is punishment in it." Her laughter softened the whole night. Then the bell at the village gate rang. 3 slow strokes. The sound killed her smile. "What is that?" I asked. "Council summons. At midnight. For an expulsion." I turned toward her. She stared into her cup. "They already cast you out. From the orchard, not from Halewyn." My anger came cold. "On what grounds?" "Defying the council, bringing royal scrutiny, dishonoring the Moon trial." "You brought none of those things." "I know." The bell rang again. Lysa stood. I stood with her. "You are not going alone." She shook her head. "Majesty, my name is Rowan when we are sitting on walls drinking poison." That stopped her. "Rowan," she said carefully. The way my name sounded in her voice was almost enough to make me forget I had an army. Almost. But you should let me face them, she continued. If you speak first, they will say I hid behind a king. They may say whatever they like. I care what I know about myself. I studied her. Then I bowed my head. Lead the way. The council hall was packed before we arrived. Halewind had a round meeting house built from cedar trunks, with an opening in the roof for moonlight. At its center stood a flat stone marked with old claw lines. Lysa stepped onto it. I remained near the door. That cost me more than any battle restraint I had ever practiced. Mother Saren sat with 6 elders. Ven's empty chair stood among them. You have broken covenant, Saren began. Lysa said nothing. You are permitted to remain under conditions. You have assumed authority over communal workers. You have accused a council steward before the crown. You have profaned blessed orchard ground with a wolfless hand. At that, something moved through the room. Not outrage. Shame. Small but there. Lysa lifted her chin. I accused no one. His own dam accused him. A few people laughed nervously. Saren's mouth tightened. Do you deny you are wolfless? No. Do you deny the moon trial rejected you? Lysa hesitated. I smelled rain. No, she said. I deny that the moon did. That was the first truly dangerous thing she said. The elders shifted. Saren leaned forward. Explain. When I was 21, I was told to shift. I could not. You decided that was the moon's judgment, but the moon never spoke. Blasphemy. Is it? Saren slapped her palm on the table. Enough. By the law of Halewind, you will leave before sunrise. My hand closed around the pommel of my sword. Joran beside me whispered, breathe. I am breathing. Like a siege engine. Lysa looked toward me. One glance. She knew. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Not yet. I obeyed. She turned back to the council. May I ask one thing? Saren looked suspicious. What? Let me take the orchard records. They belong to my father. No, they belong to Halewind. Then let me copy them. You leave before sunrise. Lysa's shoulders lowered slightly. That was all. No begging, no curse, no tears offered for their satisfaction. She stepped off the stone. A councilman on the far end, a narrow-faced fellow named Pell, muttered loudly enough to carry. Perhaps some other pack needs a gardener who cannot bless seed. I was across the room before Joran caught my sleeve. Not with violence. With presence. Sometimes that is worse. Pell went white. I stopped a pace from him. Say it again. His lips worked. Majesty, You were brave enough when she stood alone. No one moved. I could have stripped the council of authority that night. I nearly did. But Lysa came beside me. Rowan. Just my name. I turned. She looked tired. Do not make this place keep me because they fear you. The request struck at the worst part of me. The part that believed justice was easiest when given as command. What would you have me do? Come see something before dawn. So I did. We left Halewind while the council was still congratulating itself for surviving my temper. Lysa carried one pack. That was all 9 years had allowed her to call her own. We walked through the orchard in moonlight. At the farthest terrace, she stopped beside a wall of thorn and dead vine. I found this place when I was 12, she said. She pushed through an opening. Beyond it was a narrow cleft in the cliff. We entered sideways. The path descended. The air grew warmer. Then the rock opened, and I forgot how to speak. A hidden basin lay beneath the ridge. Not large, perhaps 200 paces across, but the cliffs around it caught the day's heat and held it through the night. A spring rose at the center, clear enough to show pale stones 10 feet below. Moss glowed green along the water. Wild thyme grew between rocks, and everywhere on low curling vines were closed white buds. Thousands of them. "What is this?" I whispered. "My father called it the sleeping garden." "You kept this secret." "I kept it safe." She knelt beside the spring. "I think Halewin's first settlers found this basin before they built the village. The old records speak of a moon garden where winter cannot enter, but the entrance disappeared from maps generations ago." I crouched. "Why did you not tell the council?" "I did." That answer hurt. They laughed. "They came once. Pell said the buds were weeds. Ven said the spring was too small to matter. Mother Sarin told me paradise was a word used by people who could not accept ordinary soil." Lysa touched one closed flower. "I never called it paradise." "What do you call it?" "Proof." "Of what?" "That dead-looking things are not always dead." The eastern sky paled above the cliff. A line of dawn slipped through a crack. The first ray touched the basin. The flowers opened. Not all at once. 1, then 5, then 100. White petals uncurled with silver veins. Their centers held a faint blue light, not the hard glow of sorcery but something softer, like moonlight remembered after sunrise. I had seen battle standards raised over conquered cities. I had seen northern lights spill green across the ice sea. I had stood in the old crown chamber when my father's sword chose me. None of it prepared me for that garden. Or for Lysa's face. She was not looking at the flowers. She was looking at me, waiting to see if I believed her. I did. More than that. As the moonflowers opened, heat spread across my left palm. I hissed. Lysa's eyes dropped. A silver line had appeared beneath my skin. It began at my wrist and curved toward the base of my thumb. The old royal mate mark. I had seen it in paintings. Never on a living king. Lysa backed away. "No." The word was barely air. "Lysa." "No." She looked at her own hand. Nothing marked it. Relief and hurt crossed her face so quickly I might have imagined one of them. "You should go," she said. I stared at the mark. Then at her. "Do you know what this means?" "Yes." "Then why are you telling me to leave?" "Because your mark is not my command." I felt something fierce and tender move through me. She was right. Of course she was right. I closed my fist over the silver curve. "What do you want?" For a long moment she said nothing. "Then I want one morning where no one decides my life because of what the moon did or did not do." I stepped back. "You have it. And after that?" "After that, you tell me what comes next." Her eyes filled, though no tears fell. The flowers kept opening between us. At sunrise, Halewin expected Lysa Arden to leave with one pack. Instead, the Alpha King left with her. Not as my mate. Not yet. As Royal Orchard Master. The distinction mattered. I offered her the post beside the hidden basin, with authority to investigate the western water systems and establish new orchards wherever land had been neglected. She stared at me as if I had offered her a dragon. "You have not seen me manage a royal orchard. I watched you command 50 people without raising your voice. They were villagers. My ministers are less obedient. That is not encouraging. It was not meant to be." She almost smiled. Then she asked if I say no. "Then I give you a horse, enough coin to go where you please, and a letter making clear Halewin has no claim on you. And the orchard. I seize it pending inquiry into water theft." You cannot seize a whole orchard because one steward cheated. I can seize crown-granted land when its council denies water to tenant families. She looked at me for a long time. You read law. I am occasionally king on purpose. That smile came again. This time it stayed. I will take the post for 1 season. 1 season. No promise after. None. And you do not tell anyone about your mark without asking me. That was harder. Not because I wanted to display her, because royal mate marks were matters of succession, diplomacy, and pack law. My council would demand answers. Still I said, agreed. She held out her hand. I took it. Nothing magical happened. That pleased me more than I can explain. Joyce versed. Whatever destiny meant, it could wait its turn. We rode east the next morning. Halewind watched us go. Mother Saren stood beside the gate. Pell avoided my eyes. Vin had already been sent under guard to the provincial court. Lysa did not look back until the ridge hid the orchard. Then she turned in the saddle. I pretended not to notice. She caught me pretending. Kings are poor spies. Only because no one is permitted to tell us. I am. I have noticed. The journey to my capital took 6 days. By the second, everyone in my escort adored her except my chamberlain, who feared mud. Lysa asked stable hands their names. She stopped twice to examine roadside trees. She knew which berries had survived the frost and which sheep were likely to miscarry by the way they carried themselves. At meals she sat where there was room, not where rank suggested. On the 3rd morning, we found a widow beside a broken cart. My men moved to lift it. Lysa was already under the axle. I crawled beneath beside her. She stared. Your tailor. Beyond saving. We repaired the wheel. The widow thanked me with all the proper terror people reserve for kings. Then she hugged Lysa. I envied the hug. That was when I knew the mate mark was not creating my affection. It was only naming something that had begun before I understood it. At night I slept badly. Not from desire. From thought. I had spent years believing a fated mate, if she existed, would arrive as a solution to the crown. Someone noble enough for alliances, trained enough for ceremony, wolf-strong enough to reassure old houses. Instead, destiny had put silver on my hand for a woman who argued with irrigation gates and carried pruning knives in her boot. The crown had never looked more foolish. When the Capitol towers appeared, Lysa went silent. Stonehaven was built on 3 hills above a broad river, all slate roofs and white walls. The royal keep crowned the highest hill. Wolves carved from black granite guarded the bridge. You may still change your mind, I told her. About the job. About entering that. She looked up at the keep. It looks expensive. It is. Does it leak? Constantly. Good. Why good? Perfection makes me nervous. I wanted to kiss her then. I did not. That too mattered. My council met us in the lower hall. Chancellor Bren arrived first, gray-bearded and severe. Beside him came Lady Vela of the Eastern Pax, my cousin and closest political advisor, followed by 3 ministers and the high priest of the Moon Temple. Their eyes went to Lysa. Then to my hand. I had wrapped the mark. Bren noticed the bandage. What happened? Gardening. Lysa coughed. Vela's eyes narrowed. She knew me too well. I introduced Lysa by title only. Royal Orchard Master. Bren repeated it as if I had announced a royal acrobat. We do not have a Royal Orchard Master. We do now. What happened to Master Corvin? He manages palace grounds. Lisa will oversee crown orchards, water restoration, and neglected agricultural grants. Bren looked at her simple dress. Her qualifications: 9 years maintaining a starved orchard while its steward stole the water. Lisa said, I also know pears. Vela smiled. Bren did not. Majesty, the Western houses will object to sudden authority granted to. He stopped. To, I asked. Lisa saved him. A wolfless woman. The phrase dropped into the hall. Bren closed his eyes briefly. Vela looked at me again. I kept my voice even. Yes, Lisa is wolfless. The high priest, Father Oren, studied her with unexpected curiosity. Have you ever stood a second moon trial? No. Would you? No. I loved her for how calmly she said it. Oren nodded, fair. Bren looked scandalized. I said, her office concerns trees, not shifting. That is not the point. It is exactly the point. The first week nearly broke her. Not because the work was too difficult. Because the palace was. People bowed when she wanted answers. Servants tried to carry her tools. Noblewomen invited her to teas so they could inspect the provincial curiosity the king had brought home. Ministers sent reports written in such decorative language that the actual water levels were hidden like criminals. On the 4th day, I found her in a storage yard with 27 ledgers spread across the ground. What are you doing? Finding the lie. I sat on an overturned barrel. Which lie? All reports say the southern crown orchards lost yield because of poor soil. And the soil records are good. Frost. Normal. Disease. None reported. So, she jabbed a page. The labor budget doubled. I leaned closer. It had meaning. Either your apple trees have joined the nobility, or someone is stealing wages. By sunset we had proof. A deputy quartermaster had invented 60 seasonal workers and pocketed their pay. Bren stopped questioning her qualifications after that. He began questioning why every conversation with her created more work for him. Our friendship grew in stolen pieces. A cup of tea at dawn before court. 10 minutes in the greenhouse while she taught me to cut a graft. A walk along the river wall where no one could overhear us because the wind stole words. She asked me questions no one else did. Do you like being king? No. Do you hate it? No. That is inconvenient. Most true things are. What would you do if you were not king? I thought. No one has asked me that since I was a boy. That is not an answer. I would build bridges. She laughed. I am serious. Why bridges? Because when they work, people stop thinking about them. She considered that. That is the most kingly answer possible. And you? If you were not an orchard keeper, I would still grow something. Even after Hailwind. Especially after Hailwind. She looked toward the greenhouse glass. They taught me that people can take land, title, reputation, even belonging. But if I know how to put a seed in earth, I can begin again somewhere. That night the silver mark on my palm ached. Not with magic. With the simple knowledge that someone had made her believe beginning again was the same as having no home. I wanted to give her one. I did not know yet whether she would want mine. A month passed. The hidden basin at Hailwind stayed secret between us, Joran, and 2 royal surveyors Lisa trusted. She insisted we protect it before anyone learned of the Moonflowers. They will sell them, she said. Who? Everyone. You have little faith in humanity. I have met merchants. Fair. The surveyors discovered the spring beneath the basin fed 3 ancient channels, all deliberately sealed generations earlier. Reopening them could restore the entire Western Valley. It could also make Halewyn rich. That created a problem. Lysa wanted the water held in common trust, never controlled by one steward or noble house. Bren called the proposal radical. I called it sensible. Vela called it both. While we argued over law, rumors spread. Someone in Halewyn had seen my hand at dawn. By the time the story reached Stonehaven, it had become a dozen stories. The king had found his fated mate. The king's mate was Wolfless. The king had hidden her because he was ashamed. The king had been bewitched by an orchard witch. That last one offended Lysa mostly because, as she said, if I were a witch, I would have better boots. I offered to buy boots. She refused on principle. Then the Eastern delegation arrived. Lady Merowyn, daughter of the largest wolf house in the kingdom, had been proposed to me as a political bride 3 times. She was intelligent, accomplished, and entirely uninterested in marrying me. Unfortunately, our councils were interested enough for everyone. She entered the banquet hall wearing blue velvet and took one look at Lysa, seated 3 places below Vela. Oh, she said. That was all. Later she cornered me near the musicians. Is that her? I do not know what you mean. Rowan. I hated when everyone used my own name against me. You have wrapped your left hand for 4 weeks, she said. You look at the orchard master as if she personally invented sunrise. Is that her? I exhaled. Yes. Merowyn's face softened. Does she know? Yes. Has she chosen you? No. Good. I stared. She smiled sweetly. I mean good that you did not assume. I know what you meant. Do you? I am surrounded by cruel women. You are surrounded by women who have watched kings mistake fate for ownership. That silenced me. She touched my arm. Do better. I intend to. I know. Across the room, Lysa was speaking with Father Oren. Her hand moved as she talked, her face brightened. She had forgotten to be guarded. I watched too long. Merowyn laughed. Oh, you are finished. Go away. With pleasure. The real crisis began 3 days later. A courier arrived from Halewyn carrying a blackened branch. He placed it on the council table. Moonrot, Bren said. Lysa picked it up. Her face drained. No. Father Oren leaned closer. You know it. My father called it ash sleep. I looked at her. What does it do? It kills roots from the inside. By the time bark blackens, the infection is already in the soil. The courier swallowed. Half the old orchard is showing it. Lysa was moving before anyone finished speaking. She gathered maps, tools, a traveling coat. I leave within the hour. I am coming. No. The council stared. I raised an eyebrow. She did not care. You have a border delegation tomorrow, she said. The river treaty on 6th day, the winter grain review. A king cannot abandon the capital every time a tree coughs. This is not a cough. No, it is my work. Our eyes held. I knew the argument beneath the argument. She needed to go back to Halewyn as herself, not as the king's shadow. So I stayed. It was the correct choice. I hated it. For 6 days, messages came. Lysa burned infected roots, isolated terraces, opened emergency channels, and ordered every tool boiled. She slept 2 or 3 hours a night. The rot spread anyway. On the 7th day, no message arrived. On the 8th, I left Stonehaven before dawn. Bren shouted at me on the stairs. The treaty. Vela has my authority. The Grain Review. You have eyes. The Eastern Delegates. Merowyn likes you. She does not. Then work on your charm. I was already writing. We reached Halewyn after midnight. The orchard smelled of smoke. Lines of fire pits glowed between terraces. Black branches lay in heaps. Workers moved with cloth over their mouths. I found Lysa beside the oldest pear tree. The same tree where I had first seen her. Half its canopy was dead. She leaned against the trunk. Tell me you did not ride through the night. I did not ride through the night. She looked at my horse, white with foam. You are a terrible liar. I am king. It is considered policy. She should have laughed. She did not. I dismounted. What happened? The rot reached the north route line. Can we stop it? I do not know. The words frightened me, because Lysa always knew what to do next. I stepped closer. Her face was gray with exhaustion. Sleep. No. That was not a royal order. It sounded like one. It was a plea. That changed her. She looked down. If I sleep and the fire line crosses, Joran can watch it. Joran thinks grafting is a military offense. He can watch fire. She finally let me lead her to the old keeper's cottage. Inside, one room had been cleared. Maps covered the table. Dirty cups crowded the stove. She sat on the bed. I knelt to remove her boots. She pulled back. Rowan, you have blisters. I can remove my own boots. I know. There it was again, the difference between help and taking over. I sat back. She sighed, then smiled faintly. Thank you. For failing to be useful. For listening. She removed her boots. I turned to leave. Stay. One word. I stopped. Just until I sleep. So I sat in the chair beside the cold hearth. She lay down fully clothed, one arm under her head. Within minutes her breathing changed. I watched the firelight from outside move across the ceiling. There are moments in a man's life when power becomes very small. An army could not make roots live. A crown could not erase 9 years of humiliation. A mate mark could not make a tired woman trust me. All I could do was sit in a chair and remain where she had asked me to remain. It was enough. Near dawn she woke suddenly. The flowers. What? She sat up. The moonflowers. We ran. Not to the orchard. To the hidden basin. Smoke followed us through the cleft. Inside, the moonflowers were closed. Lysa went straight to the spring and plunged her hand into the water. She smelled it, then tasted a drop. I nearly objected. What? Bitter. She filled a glass jar and held it toward the light. Fine black threads drifted inside. The rod had reached the spring. For the first time since I met her, Lysa looked broken. If the spring is infected, the whole basin goes. I touched her shoulder. She did not move away. What do you need? I need to know where it started. We know the orchard. No, her voice sharpened. Ash sleep does not appear from nothing. My father saw it once in a nursery. It came from imported rootstock. Has Halewyn imported trees? Not in 10 years. We looked at each other. Then she said, Ven. He had controlled the upper vineyards. He had diverted water. And before his arrest, he had bought new vines from the southern coast. We searched his abandoned vineyard storehouse. Behind sacks of lime, we found 3 crates marked with a merchant seal. Inside were dead vine cuttings. Black at the roots. Joran swore. Lysa went still. He knew. Can you prove it? I asked. She pointed to a ledger nailed beside the crates. Venn had recorded everything. He had discovered the rot months ago. Rather than destroy the imported vines and lose his investment, he had planted them on a distant slope and diverted orchard water away from that area to slow the spread. When the vines failed, he burned the visible rows. The infection remained underground. Then he redirected water back after his arrest. Straight toward Lisa's orchard. Not sabotage. Worse, cowardice. He had risked an entire valley rather than admit a financial loss. I wanted him in chains forever. Lisa wanted shovels. We can judge him later, she said. Dig now. So we dug. The infected vineyard sat above the basin's feeder spring. If we could cut a trench through the contaminated soil and divert runoff into a stone pit lined with ash and charcoal, we might stop new spores from reaching the water. Might. For 2 days the whole valley worked. Nobles, tenant farmers, royal guards, council elders. Even Mother Sarin came. She arrived carrying a shovel. Lisa stared at her. Sarin said, "Tell me where." No apology. Not yet. But a beginning. Lisa pointed. West Trench. Sarin went. By the third night, rain began. The worst possible thing. Water hammered the ridge and carried black soil downhill. Our trenches overflowed. The upper retaining wall collapsed. I heard the crack from half a field away. "Run!" someone shouted. A wave of muddy water tore through the ditch. Workers scattered. Lisa did not. She was on the wrong side of the channel, trying to free a jammed gate. I crossed before anyone stopped me. Water struck my knees. Leave it. If this gate stays shut, the runoff goes into the spring. Then we build another gate. There is no time. We pulled together. The wooden beam would not move. Mud rose around our boots. My wolf pressed hard beneath my skin, lending strength. I shifted only my grip, not my form. A full change in that narrow trench would have knocked her down. "On 3, she shouted. 3. You skipped 2. We are busy." She laughed once, breathless. We heaved. The beam tore loose. Water slammed through the side channel toward the charcoal pit. It also took my feet out from under me. I hit the bank. Lisa caught my arm. For one wild second we were both half submerged, clinging to roots. Then Joran and 2 workers dragged us out. We lay in the mud. Rain hit my face. Lisa rolled onto her back. "You skipped 2, she gasped. I started laughing. I could not stop. She laughed too. The workers stared at us as if we had lost our minds. Perhaps we had. Then Lisa grabbed my left hand. The bandage had torn away. The silver mate mark shone in the rain. Everyone saw it. No one spoke. Lisa's laughter died. Mother Sarin stood 10 paces away, shovel in hand. Pell stood beside her. Their faces changed. The secret was over. I sat up. Lisa released my hand as if burned. I said quietly, "Look at me." She did. "This changes nothing you have not chosen." The rain ran down her face. Around us, 50 people waited. I hated them for it. Not because they were curious. Because once again, her life had become a public thing before she had asked it to. I stood. "Back to work," I said. No one moved. My voice hardened. "Now." They moved. Lisa stayed. "You could have announced it," she said. "Yes." "You did not." "No." "Why?" I looked at her. Because I would rather lose a kingdom than win you by making your choice smaller. Her lips parted. The words were not planned. Perhaps the best vows never are. She looked down at my hand. Your mark has grown. It had. The silver curve now crossed the center of my palm. What does that mean? I asked. Father Oren, who had arrived with the second work crew, answered from behind us. It means the bond recognizes continued choice. Lysa turned sharply. You knew. He shrugged. I suspected. You said nothing. You asked for no second moon trial. I took that to include unsolicited theology. I liked him more every day. He crouched beside us. Old texts describe two kinds of mate mark. The common mark appears on both people at recognition. The royal answering mark is rarer. It begins on the crowned mate first. And the other, Lysa asked, appears only when the uncrowned mate chooses freely. Her face went unreadable. So I could remain unmarked forever. Yes. And still live. Oren blinked, of course. And Rowan. He would survive. I appreciated that she asked. Oren added, he might become extremely tiresome. I already am, I said. Lysa gave me a look. The rain softened. Then a worker shouted from the basin entrance. The spring is clearing. We ran. Inside the hidden garden, the black threads in the water had begun to thin. The charcoal trench was working. Not perfectly, but enough. Lysa knelt at the spring. She cupped water in both hands and watched it spill between her fingers. Then she cried. Quietly. No collapse, no dramatic sob. Just tears falling into the same spring she had protected since childhood. I stood beside her and did not touch her until she reached for me. When she did, I took her hand. Still no mark appeared. That was all right. We saved the basin. We did not save every tree. A third of the old orchard had to be cut and burned. The oldest pair survived, though one side never leafed again. Lysa refused to remove it. It is ugly, Pell said. It is alive, she replied. He had the sense not to argue. Ven's trial took place in the village square 2 weeks later. He confessed after seeing his own ledgers. I stripped him of stewardship, fined his estate to compensate every family whose water he stole, and sentenced him to 7 years of labor under provincial supervision, not in a dungeon, but on public irrigation works. Some called that mercy. Lysa called it useful. Mother Sarin asked to speak after judgment. The whole village gathered. Lysa stood beside me, not behind. Sarin stepped onto the old council stone. When Lysa Arden was 21, she said, I presided over her moon trial. A tremor entered her voice. I believed our law protected Haelwyn. When she did not shift, I told her the moon had rejected her. I used tradition to give my fear a holy name. No one moved. Sarin looked at Lysa. I was wrong. Lysa's face tightened. Sarin continued, we did more than deny you land. We taught others to treat your service as debt rather than gift. We accepted your food, your work, your knowledge, and still called you lesser. Her voice broke. I am sorry. The apology did not repair 9 years. Real apologies rarely do. They are doors, not bridges. Lysa let the silence remain. Then she said, thank you for saying it where everyone can hear. Sarin bowed her head. Pell followed. Then another council member. One by one, the people who had watched her humiliation acknowledged it. I did not make them kneel. Lysa would have hated that. Instead, she made them work. She proposed a new valley charter, water rights recorded publicly, orchard land held by workers as well as council families, moon trial status removed from civil inheritance, and the hidden basin protected as a common sanctuary. Saren voted yes. Pell abstained. Lysa glared at him until he changed it to yes. I nearly laughed during the vote. That evening, we returned to the basin. The moonflowers were open. You have a habit of changing law wherever you go, I said. So do you. I am king. That is a poor excuse. We sat beside the spring. I had removed the bandage permanently. The silver mark no longer needed hiding. Lysa touched the edge of it with one finger. Heat traveled up my arm. Does it hurt? No. Ever. When you leave a room. She rolled her eyes. That was terrible. I have had no practice. At what? Courting. She looked at me then. The word hung between us. I forced myself not to fill the silence. Finally she asked, "Is that what you want?" Yes. Not a royal mating ceremony. No. Not a council announcement. No. Not a destiny lecture. Especially not that. Her smile began slowly. What does courting an alpha king involve? I was hoping you knew. I grew pears. I build bridges. Poorly, I imagine. Cruel woman. She laughed. Then she became serious. One season, she reminded me. One season. And at the end, I can leave. Yes. Even if the mark stays on your hand. Yes. She watched me carefully. I let her. Then you may court me. My heart did something ridiculous. I was 40 years old, commander of 12 packs, survivor of 3 border wars, and I nearly grinned like a stable boy. May I kiss your hand? She considered. Yes. I lifted her fingers and touched my lips to her knuckles. The moonflowers brightened. Not dramatically. Just enough that we both noticed. Lysa whispered, "Show off plants." I laughed into her hand. That became our beginning. Not the mark. Not the hidden garden. Permission. The season turned. Hailwind changed faster than I expected. Once the spring channels were reopened, grass returned to fields abandoned for years. New apple and pear saplings went into the burned terraces. The noble vineyards were divided under the court judgment, some retained by Ven's family under strict water limits, the rest leased to workers. Lysa traveled constantly between Hailwind and Stonehaven. I arranged my court schedule to overlap with hers. Bren noticed. He pretended not to. Vela noticed. She made jokes. Merwin sent Lysa a pair of waterproof boots with a note, for saving the kingdom from its king's footwear opinions. Lysa kept them. I was offended. Our courtship was not graceful. I sent flowers once. She asked whether they had roots. I said no. She said that seemed wasteful. The next time I sent a potted rosemary bush. She approved. She taught me to prune. I cut the wrong branch. She mourned it theatrically for 3 days. I took her to the old bridge foundry and showed her how arches carried weight. She listened with such attention that I forgot half my explanation. At a harvest supper we danced. I stepped on her foot. The entire court saw. She whispered, "Majesty, you command armies. Armies stand farther away." She laughed against my shoulder. My wolf adored her. He never pushed. That mattered to me. The bond between us felt less like a chain and more like a road appearing as we walked it. Every choice made the road clearer. Then winter brought the old laws to my door. A delegation of Western elders arrived at Stonehaven, demanding a ruling on the royal mate. They did not object to Lysa personally, they claimed. They objected to precedent. If a wolfless woman can become queen, Lord Harith said, what is the meaning of our blood rights? Lysa sat beside the council fire. She had insisted on attending. I asked, what meaning do you believe they have? They preserve the strength of the packs. Does denying inheritance to wolfless adults make wolves stronger? It preserves order. Whose? He shifted. Another elder spoke. The moon trial has guided us for centuries. Lysa said, so did leeches. Bren coughed into his hand. I looked down so no one saw my smile. Harith frowned. This is not amusing. No, Lysa said. It was not amusing when I was 21 either. The room cooled. She continued, you are worried I will become queen and make every old custom meaningless. I have not agreed to become queen. That startled them. It startled me a little, though it should not have. Harith looked at me, but the mark is mine, I said. Her choice is hers. Then the succession will survive a conversation. Bren actually smiled at that. The elders left without victory. But their fear spread. In 3 Western packs, local councils refused to register wolfless marriages. One family disinherited a daughter. A village priest denied burial rights to a man who had never shifted. Lysa read the reports in silence. Then she pushed them toward me. This is because of us. No. This existed before us. They are tightening the old rules because they think you will change them. Then I will. She looked up sharply. Carefully. I leaned back. You think I should wait? I think laws made in anger become new cages. That sentence stayed with me. So instead of issuing a royal decree, we traveled. Not as king and future queen. As king and orchard master. We visited Western packs. We listened to wolfless adults. We listened to elders. We read burial codes, inheritance charters, marriage contracts. The stories were worse than I knew. A smith barred from his father's forge. A widow unable to inherit the cottage she had built. Twin brothers, one wolf-born and one wolfless, treated as different legal classes. Lysa never used her own pain to overpower theirs. She listened. At night in roadside inns, we argued over language for a new charter. No one should lose civil standing based on shifting, I said. Too narrow. How? What about people who shift late, people whose wolves are injured, humans married into packs? You want personhood separated entirely from wolf status. Yes. That will cause outrage. Yes. You sound pleased. I am not afraid of useful outrage. I loved her. I knew it before I said it. The knowledge came on an ordinary evening in a village called Redbrook. She sat at a scarred table mending the strap of her field satchel. Snow tapped the window. My guards played cards near the hearth. Nothing magical happened. She bit the thread to cut it. Then she looked up and caught me staring. What? I love you. The room did not go silent. No music stopped. Joran cursed over a bad card. Lysa froze. I had not planned the words. I almost apologized. Instead, I waited. Her eyes shone. That was unfair. How? I was holding a needle. I can try again when you are armed differently. A laugh escaped her, wet with tears. She put the satchel down. Come here. I did. She stood. I love you too. Then she kissed me. Softly. Briefly. Enough. Heat flashed through both my hands. Lysa pulled back. A silver line appeared on her right palm. Not a crescent. A branching shape. Like the roots of a tree. Mine changed too. The curve across my palm sent small silver branches toward my fingers until the two marks, though different, clearly belonged to one design. Father Oren later called it the Ruten Moon Bond. Lisa called it unnecessarily decorative. I called it beautiful. News reached Stonehaven before we did. By the time we returned, crowds lined the bridge. Lisa stopped her horse. I hate this. The crowd. The expectation. We can turn around. You cannot hide your capital. I can try. She looked at me. I held out my marked hand. Not to claim her. To ask. She placed hers in it. Together we crossed the bridge. The crowd saw the marks. They cheered. Then something unexpected happened. Lisa lifted our joined hands. The cheer rose. She did not look overwhelmed anymore. She looked steady. This time the public moment belonged to her because she chose it. That difference was everything. The new civil charter passed in spring. We named it the Equal Hearth Act because Lisa refused any title containing her own name. It removed wolf status from inheritance, marriage registration, craft membership, burial rights, and landholding. Traditional moon trials remained for those who wanted them. They simply stopped deciding whether a person counted. Some packs celebrated. Some complained. None collapsed. Halewind sent the first basket from its restored orchard to the palace. Pears. Lisa cried over them. Then denied crying. I ate 3. They were not especially good. I lied. She caught me. You hate them. They are historic. That means yes. They are firm. They are rocks. We will display them. We will feed them to pigs. Royal pigs. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. I would have married her that afternoon if she asked. She did not. Before that season ended, Halewind asked us back for the first Moonflower week. The invitation came from Mother Sarin and bore every council seal. Lisa read it twice. They want to open the hidden basin to the Western Assembly, she said. Do you? For one evening, no merchants, no cutting, no collecting seed. Then why do you look as if the letter insulted your ancestors? She passed it to me. At the bottom, in smaller writing, was a condition. By old Halewind custom, only those recognized by the moon trial could lead the ceremonial walk into blessed ground. I read the line again. Then I looked at her. They invited you to your own garden and told you not to lead the way. Yes. I reached for a pen. She caught my wrist. No decree. I was going to write a polite note. You were holding the red decree pen. It is a very polite pen. Rowan. I put it down. She paced to the window. This is what you meant when you said changing one law does not change a habit. I do not remember ever being that wise. You were probably tired. What do you want to do? She stared out at the palace orchard, where young apprentices were tying branches. Go. And let them decide what kind of people they want to be when I am standing in front of them. So we went. The Western Assembly drew nearly 300 adults to Halewind, farmers, pack elders, millers, healers, landholders, priests, craft masters. They came as much to see Lisa as to see the Moonflowers. By then everyone knew about my mark. Most did not know whether hers had appeared. She wore gloves. Not to hide the mark from shame. To deny the crowd a spectacle before she chose to give them one. I loved that stubbornness. The opening dinner took place in the rebuilt cider barn. Long tables filled the room. The old orchard council sat on one side, visiting elders on the other. Lisa sat beside me. No one dared move her lower. Halfway through the meal, Lord Hareth, the same man who later challenged us at Stonehaven, rose with a cup in his hand. I mean no disrespect to the royal orchard master. Lysa leaned toward me and whispered, "Whenever a man begins there, prepare for disrespect." I coughed to hide a laugh. Hareth continued, "But Halewyn's moon garden is not ordinary crown land. It is sacred ground. If old customs are discarded whenever they inconvenience us, what remains of identity?" Lysa set down her fork. Mother Sarin looked sick. Hareth turned toward her. "Does the council intend a wolfless woman to lead the sacred walk?" The room tightened. I could feel every eye waiting for me. I did nothing. Lysa had asked for that. Mother Sarin stood. A year earlier, I think she would have hidden behind law. This time, she said, "The council has not yet resolved the matter." Hareth nodded as if that proved his point. "Then perhaps one of the recognized elders should lead. Her Majesty-to-be may follow with honor." The phrase "Her Majesty-to-be" irritated Lysa more than the insult. She rose. "I am not anyone's Majesty-to-be." Hareth blinked. "I am Lysa Arden, Royal Orchard Master, keeper of the Western Water Trust, the person who found the basin when half this room thought it was weeds." A few people smiled. Hareth did not. "And I am wolfless," she continued. "That part is also true. If your sacred walk is about wolves, choose someone else. If it is about remembering the garden and the water that keeps this valley alive, I know the path." A miller near the end of the table called, "You open the water." Another voice, "She saved the spring." Hareth lifted a hand. "No one denies her service." Lysa's expression changed. That sentence was too familiar. No one denies her service. They had said versions of it for years. She is useful, but. She is kind, but. She works hard, but. Always a but waiting to restore the old hierarchy. Lysa removed one glove. The silver roots on her palm showed. The room went silent. Hareth's eyes widened. She looked at her own mark, then at him. This did not make me more capable than I was yesterday. No one breathed. The king's bond did not teach me water. It did not give me the years I spent in the orchard. It did not make the spring clear. If you would not trust my hand without this mark, then you do not trust me now. You trust only the king's approval written on my skin. I had never loved her more. Hareth sat down slowly. Lysa put her glove back on. "The garden opens at moonrise," she said. "Anyone who comes may walk behind me or may stay here. I will not be offended either way." Then she resumed eating. Joran stared into his plate, shoulders shaking. I leaned toward him. "If you laugh, I will send you to the northern wall." "I am moved, Majesty." "You are choking." "Deeply moved." At moonrise, Lysa went alone to the orchard gate. I remained 50 paces back. This was difficult enough that Vela took pity on me. "You look ill." "I am practicing restraint." "It does not suit your face." "Nothing helpful from you." "No." Lysa opened the gate. For several seconds, no one followed. Hareth and the old traditionalist stood together. Mother Sarin stood apart from them. Then the bent-shouldered worker who had defended Lysa the day I arrived stepped forward. His name was Emric. I had learned it since. He joined her. A washerwoman followed. Then 2 vineyard workers. Then Father Oren. Mother Sarin came next. The line began to move. Not everyone joined. That mattered too. Choice is only real if refusal remains possible. Hareth stayed in the barn. So did perhaps 40 others. Lysa did not look back at them. She led the rest through the old orchard, and toward the thorn cleft. At the entrance, she stopped everyone. "No blades," she said. "No baskets. No one steps off the stone path. If you break a stem, you tell me. If you see something beautiful, you leave it where it is." A farmer raised his hand. "What if we see the king fall in the spring?" "Leave him where he is." The group laughed. I said treason. Lysa said agricultural policy. We entered. The basin had never held so many people. They spread along the path in hushed groups. Some knelt by the spring. Some touched the warm stone. Some simply stood and stared at the thousands of closed white buds. Clouds covered the moon. Nothing bloomed. I heard a whisper behind me. "Perhaps they will not open." Another answered, "Too many people." An old woman said, "Perhaps the garden knows." There it was. The old hunger to turn nature into judgment. Lysa heard it too. She turned. "Flowers do not test our souls." The old woman flushed. Lysa softened. "They open to light and temperature. Tonight is colder than last year. Give them time." Practical mercy. Even for superstition. We waited. Clouds moved slowly. People began to murmur. At the edge of the basin stood a stone platform built by the first settlers. Mother Sarin climbed onto it. "I have something to say." Lysa closed her eyes briefly. Sarin faced the crowd. "The condition in the invitation was mine." A murmur passed. "I wrote that only a Moontrial elder could lead the walk." Lysa looked at her. Sarin's hands trembled. I told myself I was preserving custom while honoring Lysa by inviting her. In truth, I was still trying to keep one foot in an old wrong because leaving it entirely frightened me. She looked toward the path they had just walked. Tonight, I followed the woman I once expelled. No one moved. She did not require my humiliation. She did not ask the king to force me. She simply knew the way. Sarin turned to Lysa. "If this garden requires a keeper, then by every honest measure it has had one for years." She took the old council staff from her belt. The staff carried the silver knot that represented authority over sacred agricultural ground. Sarin held it out. Lysa did not take it. "Is this another title that depends on me being the king's mate?" "No." "Would you offer it if his mark had never appeared?" Sarin's face hurt. Then she answered the only useful way. "I cannot prove what I would have done before. I can only choose what I do now." Lysa studied her. Then she took the staff. "Not as a queen. As a keeper." At that exact moment, the clouds opened. Moonlight poured through the split in the ridge. The first flower opened near Lysa's boot. Someone gasped. Then another opened. And another. Silver-white petals unfurled along the spring. The bloom traveled outward in waves, each vine catching the light a heartbeat after the last. People forgot to whisper. I watched Lysa. She watched the flowers. Then she looked at me. There are moments when a crowd disappears, even while it surrounds you. I crossed the path. I stopped before her and held out my hand. Not because ceremony required it. Because I wanted to stand beside her. She looked at my palm. Then at my face. You know they are all watching. I have survived worse. You hate crowds. I hate being watched while dancing. That is because you are bad at it. Lysa. She smiled. Then she placed her hand in mine. The silver roots in her palm warmed against my skin. Around us, moonflowers opened by the hundreds. The same Halewind elders who had once cast her out stood among the vines and watched their sacred garden bloom, while the wolfless woman they had rejected held the Alpha King's hand. No one bowed. No one needed to. Mother Sarin simply stepped off the stone platform and made room for Lysa to stand there if she wished. Lysa did not. She stayed beside me on the path. That was the image people later remembered. Not a crown. Not a throne. Her work dress beneath a dark cloak, the keeper's staff tucked under one arm, her hand in mine, Moonflowers opening behind us. The title storytellers later gave the evening made its sound, as though I had transformed her fate. I knew better. I had taken her hand. She had already made the garden live. The following morning, Harith asked to see us. He looked as though he had slept poorly. I was wrong, he said. Lysa waited. He cleared his throat. About the walk. Only the walk. His jaw tightened. I almost intervened. Lysa glanced at me. I remained silent. Harith exhaled. About what the moon trial proves. That is better. He frowned. You are not gracious. I spent 9 years being gracious. Vela, standing by the window, made a strangled noise. Harith looked at me for rescue. I examined a pair. He tried again. My granddaughter is Wolfless. The room changed. Lysa's expression softened, but only slightly. She is 32, he continued. A brewer, better at it than either of her brothers. I signed the document that prevents her inheriting the family brewery. Lysa said nothing. I told myself law was law. He stared at his hands. Last night I realized I have been asking whether you are fit to stand in a garden, while refusing to ask whether my own kin is fit to own the work she has done for 15 years. Lysa pulled out a chair. Sit. He did. They talked for an hour. Not about guilt. About paperwork. That was one of the reasons I loved her. She could receive an apology and immediately ask what repair required. By noon, Harith had agreed to support the civil charter. He did not become a different man in one night. He argued with us for months afterward. But he went home and transferred the brewery deed into shared ownership before the law required him to. Lysa kept the letter his granddaughter later sent. She never showed me the whole thing. Only one line. He finally asked me what I built, not what I lacked. Lysa folded the letter and tucked it into her field journal. That, she said, is worth more than people bowing. I agreed. It was also when I understood that our story would never be contained by a mate mark. The mark had brought attention. What we did with that attention would decide whether it meant anything. The season she promised me ended on the first day of summer. We returned to the hidden basin alone. No guards inside the cleft. No priests. No council. The moonflowers had spread along the eastern stones. Lysa walked to the spring. One season, she said. I felt suddenly afraid. Not battle fear. Worse. The kind that leaves a man unable to command anything. One season, I agreed. You kept your promise. I tried. You failed twice. Which times? You sent guards after me when I traveled alone. They stayed out of sight. I saw them. I chose poor guards. And you ordered a roof repaired over my cottage without asking. It leaked. It was my leak. I apologized. You did. She turned. Her expression was warm. You listened more than you failed. I could breathe again. She stepped closer. I do not want to leave. The whole basin seemed to hold still. I said nothing because I had learned something at last. Let her finish. I do not want to be queen because a mark says so, she continued. I do not want to be your mate because a priest explains it. I do not want Halewind to accept me because you forced them. I know. I want. She looked down at our hands. I want the life we have been building, the arguments, the roads, the trees, your terrible dancing. I want to sit in council and annoy Bren. I want to come back here when the world becomes too loud. My throat tightened. And I want you. There are victories a king is expected to receive standing. I did not. I went to one knee. Not because she was my subject. Because she was not. Lysa Arden, will you marry me? She laughed through tears. You planned that. I have carried the ring for 4 months. You said nothing. I feared the needle. She covered her face. I waited. Finally, she lowered her hands. Yes. The moonflowers opened. Every one. It was not their hour. The sun was still above the ridge. Yet white petals unfolded across the basin until the hidden garden shone like a field of fallen stars. Lysa stared. So dramatic, she whispered. I stood. Not my doing. Your wolf. He has no gardening talent. She looked at the flowers, then at me. Is this a paradise? It was the first time she ever used the word. I understood what she meant. Not perfection. Not some place untouched by grief. This basin had nearly died. The orchard above it bore burn scars. The village beyond the ridge had spent years mistaking tradition for truth. Lysa herself carried wounds no magic had erased. Paradise, if it existed, was not a place where nothing had ever gone wrong. Perhaps it was a place where what was wounded was allowed to grow again. I touched my forehead to hers. No, I said, it is a beginning. We married at Halewyn. That surprised everyone except Lysa. She chose the old orchard rather than the royal temple. Workers hung lanterns from the surviving trees. Mother Saren baked bread. Pell, who had become almost tolerable, organized benches and complained about every measurement. Bren attended in formal black. Vela wore green. Merwin brought boots as a wedding gift. I threatened exile. She did not believe me. Father Oren performed the vows under the oldest pear tree. The dead half of its trunk remained bare. The living half was covered in new leaves. Lysa wore no crown. Not at first. She wore a cream-colored dress embroidered at the cuffs with small silver roots. When Oren asked whether she came freely, she answered, I do. When he asked me whether I would honor her freedom even when it contradicted my power, I answered, I will. Then we spoke vows we had written ourselves. Mine was short. I will never call destiny an excuse to stop choosing you. Lysa cried. So did Joran, though he later blamed pollen. Her vow was shorter. I choose you, Rowan, keep earning it. Everyone laughed. I did too. Then I kissed her. The mate marks warmed. Wolves on the ridge lifted their heads. They did not bow. I was glad. This was not a story about a woman finally becoming worthy, because powerful creatures recognized her. She had always been worthy. The rest of us had simply taken too long to learn how to see. After the vows, Mother Saren approached with a small wooden box. Inside lay the silver cord from Lysa's failed moon trial. Lysa stared at it. Saren said, I kept it because I thought it was evidence of shame. Her voice trembled. Now I think it belongs to you to do with as you wish. Lysa lifted the cord. For a moment, I thought she might throw it into the fire. Instead, she walked to the old pear tree. She tied the cord around the dead side of the trunk. Not the living side. The dead side. Why there, I asked later. So no one pretends it did not happen. That was Lysa. She never needed pain erased. She needed it named, then put in its proper place. Years have passed since that day. Halewind Hollow is different now. The orchard covers 3 terraces beyond the old walls. The first replacement pear trees finally produce fruit worth eating. The spring channels are protected by law. The hidden basin remains closed to merchants, open only to healers, gardeners, and villagers during the Moonflower Week. People call it the Quiet Garden. No one calls it paradise. Lysa would not allow it. She says paradise makes people lazy. Our capital changed too. The palace greenhouse became a public teaching garden 3 days each week. Crown land grants now require shared water maps. Every ministry report includes actual numbers, because Lysa once threatened to compost a stack of Bren's decorative summaries. He believed her. So did I. She became queen 2 months after our wedding, though she continued to use orchard master on agricultural orders. At her coronation, she wore the crown for exactly 43 minutes. Then she took it off to examine a diseased rose bush outside the chapel. The court followed. That image is still painted in the West Gallery. Half the nobility in ceremonial robes standing around while their new queen kneels in the dirt. It is my favorite royal portrait. Mother Sarin served another 6 years on the Halewind Council. She spent most of them helping wolfless adults recover land rights denied under the old rules. Pell became keeper of the water rolls. He developed a surprising talent for fairness once people watched him closely. Ven completed his sentence. Lysa insisted he be offered ordinary work afterward. Not stewardship. Never again unchecked authority. But work. He took a position repairing mountain channels. I met him once years later. He looked older, quieter. Her Majesty was kinder than I deserved, he said. No, I told him. She was more practical than you deserved. Lysa approved that answer. And the old pear tree. It lived. Every spring, only half of it flowers. The other half stays black and bare, silver cord weathering around the trunk. Visitors often ask why we do not cut the dead wood away. Lysa always gives the same answer. Because healing is not the same as pretending there was never a wound. When she says it, I still remember the first time I saw her. Mud on her hands. A steward ordering her trees burned. A village ready to call failure proof of her nature. I remember how close I came to solving everything with command. If I had, I might have won obedience and lost her. Instead, she taught me the hardest lesson a king can learn. Love is not the moment power reaches down and chooses someone. Love is the moment power opens its hand. Tonight I am writing this from the stone wall beside the old orchard. My tailor still hates the wall. Lysa sits beside me with a basket of pears between us. They are finally sweet. The moonflowers will open in an hour. Visitors have gone. Guards wait beyond the ridge, for once the kingdom is quiet. Her hair is silvering now. So is mine. She still carries a pruning knife in her boot. I still step on her foot when we dance. The marks on our palms have faded from bright silver to soft white, like scars made of moonlight. She catches me looking at them. What? Nothing. That is never true. I take her hand. The roots on her palm meet the curve on mine. Below us, water moves through channels that once ran dry because one man thought his vineyard mattered more than a valley. Beyond the wall, new trees stand where old ones burned. Some are crooked. Some bear scars. All of them reach for light. Lysa leans her head against my shoulder. The first moonflower opens. Then another. I think of the question she asked me when I proposed. Is this a paradise? I know my answer now. Paradise was never the hidden garden. It was this. A woman once told she had no place in the world choosing, freely and every day, to make one beside me. And after all these years, I still consider it the greatest honor of my crown that she keeps choosing it.